Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Thanks to this week's patrons, Ryan Cernicki, Chris Marlar, Wayne Washington, Fluffy Feet, Greg Schaefer, Gabrielle, April Donovan, and Drone Adventures. Your monthly support means the world to us. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the Arctic north of Canada, to the area called Nunavut. The landmass surrounds the Hudson Bay, and the tops of the hills are rounded off due to millennia of glacial erosion. The plant life consists of low brush and shrubs with seasonal flowers. The animal life includes walrus, seals, Arctic fox, geese, caribou, wolves, and polar bears. Nunavut hunters Leo Ijjangiaq, 38 years of age, Laurent Jr, Uttak, and Darryl Kaunak, 33 years of age, decided to go caribou and narwhal hunting at their usual hunting site and left Naujaat with its population of 1,080 souls on Tuesday, August 21, 2018, full of excitement and optimism. The trio motored along the beautiful Hudson Bay coast for 70 kilometers and were approaching Lyon Bay, their hunting destination of choice. They were born and raised here and knew the country better than the back of their own hands, so they didn't bring a GPS. Their boat motor had been running poorly, and they thought they would hunt while it cooled. The hunters piloted their way into the bay and beached their boat to start looking for caribou. The men glassed the area and hiked a short distance in search of a caribou herd, but after a few hours returned to their boat. While the men were hunting, a huge patch of sea ice had floated over the mouth of Lyon Bay, making their exit dangerous, if not impossible. They knew there was nothing they could do until the sea ice passed by, so they pitched their tent and made camp. As the men tinkered on the boat motor for a couple of days, they unknowingly began to gather an ominous crowd. By the morning of Thursday, August 23rd, the men had been there 2 days and were hoping for rescue, as repair had failed. They couldn't raise anyone on the CB radio in the boat, so they would just have to wait. They were making morning tea in front of their tent when they noticed some uninvited guests. The men noticed a polar bear walking toward them, so Leo grabbed his hunting rifle from inside the tent. He fired it into the air to frighten the bears off. The bears were very close before they were noticed, and the scene quickly fell into chaos. Laurent had exited the tent right behind Leo, and in the confusion was grabbed by the female polar bear. She pulled him close and clamped her jaws onto his head. It was at that point that Darryl became so frightened he committed the one mistake he shouldn't. He began to run away. The female polar bear immediately dropped Laurent and began to pursue Darryl. Leo fired his rifle, trying to kill the bear before it could reach his friend, but his rifle jammed. He ran into the tent and grabbed a different rifle and aimed it at the polar bear. Needless to say, she quickly caught Darryl and knocked him to the ground. She began clawing and biting him about the head and neck. She mauled him mercilessly before she was shot and killed by Leo. He also shot her yearling cub. Leo and Laurent ran to their friend's side and tried to patch his wounds and stop his bleeding, but they could do nothing for their friend. He was essentially dead before they tried to save him, but their devotion for their friend led them to try to save him anyway. They realized the futility of their first aid and covered their friend with a tarp. Leo and Laurent were also injured. Laurent had a bite wound on his head, but appeared to be none the worse the wear, aside from that. The men were surrounded by the carnage of the incident, with 2 dead bears laying near their dead friend. They now understood how precarious their sleeping situation was, and moved their improvised shelter to the cab of their beached boat, along with Darryl's corpse. By the 24th of August, other bears in the area began looking the camp over. It was apparently quite a draw for them. The boat stood out on the shore, and the smell of blood from the dead polar bears and Darryl probably raised their curiosity. One of the distant polar bears began approaching the attack scene. Leo and Laurent were worn thin and intolerant of any bears by the 5th day of their ordeal. Leo shot the bear and killed it, stating that he will take responsibility for any legal repercussions from the act. Another day later, still stranded, the men were approached by a 4th polar bear. This bear also met the same fate as the others. He was shot by Leo while guarding his friend's life and his dead friend's corpse. The men would watch as the ghost-like shapes of the polar bears in the distance would appear and then disappear, to reappear somewhere else. The polar bears continued to test the camp boundaries day and night. Leo and Laurent had to stay vigilant to keep the bears at bay. The anxiety of the situation helped them stay awake for 3 days while warding the polar bears from them and Darryl's remains. By Friday, August 24th, their families had become alarmed that the men hadn't yet returned. They called the authorities, and rescue planes began searching on Saturday, August 25th by air as ground search crews scoured the land. A boat of ground searchers were piloted to Lyon Bay, but were blocked from entering due to the sea ice. The icebreaker CCGS Louis St. Laurent was recruited in the search for the hunters, and a search helicopter was dispatched from it to comb the ground. The pilot flew the craft into Lyon Bay and located the stranded hunters, now exhausted. It took 3 men to load Darryl's body into the helicopter, and the villagers mourned his loss when the men returned to their town. Wildlife officials investigated the dead polar bears and determined that one was a mature female and the mother of the yearling male, and the third was a younger solitary female bear. The 4th bear that was shot and presumed dead had either recovered and left or was dragged away for consumption by other polar bears. All of the bears involved in the attack were said to be in fair to good shape. The residents of Naujaat are said to be on edge with the tensions from Darryl's death. Some residents even stated that they plan to shoot polar bears on sight, citing the difference in harvest permits with nearby towns. Naujaat was only allotted 10 permits for polar bears, while nearby towns were allocated nearly 40. Given the strict regulations surrounding harvest, protection, and prosecution for violators, natives are put in a ridiculous position. This was the second polar bear attack in Nunavut in 2018, and authorities and natives are still searching for an acceptable solution to balance the needs of polar bears and people. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you enjoyed this video, please show us by liking and subscribing, as well as clicking on the notifications option. Check out our merch store for cool camping stuff, and we appreciate it when you share our videos to your social media platforms. Thank you for being part of our human community, and please be safe out there, especially in bear country.